Sherri, a CEO, speaker, coach, and author. As a business leader, I'm on a mission to empower women everywhere to embrace their most authentic self by challenging what you already know, then stretch to consider a different perspective. I share moments with people all over the world who are already on that path and are willing to share that perspective with me. Join me as we transparently consider this. Hey, everyone. We are back with another episode of Consider This, a Pretty Girls Work podcast, where we have conversations that empower you to be your most authentic self and lead as a businesswoman. We share practical ways on how to live authentically in our personal and in our professional lives, how we dress, how we share in meetings. All of this stuff is really connected to who we are authentically, but how do we show up? There's so many questions, there's so many perspectives. How do we even actually take that brilliance that we see in our employees and our staff, our team, and allow that to come out and show authentically? All of that is going to be in our conversations here. Every conversation will challenge us to think differently, to open our minds, and consider something from a different perspective. So get comfortable and join us as we consider this. Well, today we are here with an amazing person that I really cannot wait to introduce you to. This guest is someone who has a heart to dynamically transform the way we see the world of retail. And her company has a mission, is on a mission to provide leadership development to retail managers and their staff. And also she consults, she speaks, she consults with C-suite leaders, and also finds time in the midst of all of that to empower young people to learn how to ace their first job in retail. She is the founder and CEO of RetailU and the author of The Positive Effect. Please welcome Miss April Sabral. Yay! We finally did it.
Yes.
I know we wanted to do this for a long time. April, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me on the show. I'm so excited. Anytime you ask me to do anything and I get to spend time with you, I'm super gracious and I feel full of gratitude for that. So
Same here. I know because we met through the charitable organization that I work with, One Voice, One Team, and your company partnered with us so that we can empower youth to kind of like ace their first retail job. And it's been a great success. And we're now thinking about branching out to New York City. What? Because that's my hometown. And I'm like so excited about that.
Me too.
But I really wanted to have you on the show because this season is all about the story behind the authentic leader, right? Because we always see, especially in the retail world, the glitz, the glamour, the pretty look, right? The Instagram ready, we don't understand really the years and years of sacrifice and hard work and humility and all of the other things that had to go into getting you to where you are. And you're still becoming, of course. We're never arrived.
Yeah.
But I really wanted people to hear your story because I think people will see you and see your book and see what you're doing in your company and be like, wow, she's got it all together. She really has a lot going for her. But you need to hear her story. It's amazing. It makes so much more sense when you hear her story. So I can't wait to get into this with you. So let's just start off with, tell us a little bit about how you grew up and specifically what part of your upbringing led you to the world of retail. Let's start there, maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have an accent, right? So I grew up in the UK.
Yeah.
But both of my parents were American hippies that went over there to travel.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was, and they were illegal immigrants in England. So it's interesting to me because I don't think like that about my childhood, but the more I get to share the story, the more I really think about it and reflect back. It had a lot to do with where I am now and kind of my journey, because they were two Americans that were living there illegally, basically went on vacation. My mom stayed, and then my dad, they didn't have papers, so he couldn't stay. So he left when I was 4 years old and went back to the States. My mum didn't want to go back to the States, so she stayed, and she created her own business, which was an antique store, which was a retail shop. And so so I grew up as a young girl, a twin. I had a twin. I have an identical twin sister in a retail shop, and I would always, everything in our house had a price ticket on it. And I would hear my mom have these amazing conversations with people that were buying and selling pieces of furniture, and the story behind that furniture. And what I used to see her do is have these amazing connections with people and help them, buy things for their home and things like that. And we moved lots as kids. I think we lived in like 7 different houses, I think, before the age of 12. Yeah. And then I went away to a boarding school from the age of like 8 till 16. So that made me very, very independent, right? Because I had to like kind of fend for myself in an all-girls boarding school, which was not the most supportive environment, I have to say, at that age. And I have an identical twin sister that I didn't really get along with. So yeah, it was kind of challenging. But I do think that those challenges and those obstacles really made me a strong young person. Yeah. When I was 16, I moved out of home because I didn't get along with my stepdad. And I just had to get a job and survive. So the first job I got was obviously in a retail store, because you don't need to go to school for it. It was quite easy to get a job. And that's how I got into retail. It wasn't intentional by any means. It was really just to get a job at the beginning to survive. And I think I saw it that way until I got into my late 20s. It was just what I'm going to do it until I figure out what I'm really doing with my life.
Wow.
That was really it. Yeah.
That is, first of all, I'm wowed by a lot right now. Didn't know you had an identical twin sister. OMG. Didn't know that your parents were Americans. OMG. Didn't know that you grew up with that retail background. I did not know that. Mm-hmm. Look at that. So that makes sense. That now makes so much sense that you would gravitate to retail and be like, I'll just do this until I figure out what I want to do with my life. I love that. And
my mom was a very strong, you got to think back then, she was American in England in a class society that really didn't accept people from the outside. It was really what you grew up, there's no striving to be more in England back then. It was a real place. So she came along and she's this dynamic American woman, right? And she's got this business, and she was a strong person. I think about that and I reflect on that back then, how she paved her way. She was on that antique roadshow, as the antique dealer, telling people the things. And she was a pretty amazing entrepreneur, I have to say, and really carved her way there in that industry. Yeah.
Wow. What would you say, and that's just so amazing to me, but what would you say, if you were to look back and say, okay, now looking back, like how you just said, she was a dynamic, very strong person. What would you say was one quality that you would say, or qualities that you would say that you gleaned from her that you actually used within your career?
I think she is a really great salesperson. She can sell anything. I watched her sell anything to anybody, but with a genuine heart of selling somebody something that was going to make their life better and their house feel better, and the story of the furniture. Because, antiques have these stories. She was obsessed with history and stories. I think I can get anybody to buy into anything. Like, I can take anybody on a journey with me, right? Like, they'll just follow me because I have this way to kind of get people's buy-in. So I think that really did make a difference. And my mom was a real, she was a very spiritual person. She came from Northern California. She was very like, I believe in the universe is gonna, it's all gonna work out, and like the law of cause and effect. And she used to talk to us about that a lot of the time, which was very different from my English friends with their parents and stuff. And so I think just that traveling around and being open to things and that spiritual connection, I've always believed that there's a bigger purpose why I'm here. And she really kind of instilled that in me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. I can definitely see it. And I can attest to it for sure. The sales side of it. But I love the fact that you said like she could sell anything to anyone, but with such a genuine heart. I think that is definitely, it comes through. for you, 100%. It definitely comes through. And also, going to boarding school from 8 to 16. What the heck? You're just blowing me away right now. But definitely, you had to be independent and kind of do your own, like find your way, right? What would you say, even in those formative years, would be uh let's let me say it this way. I'm gonna just say it straight. What was
Yeah.
your best failure? I want to say what was a failure that you were able to utilize and kind of like help somebody else with? But I want to say, what is your best failure? Because I feel like in those formative years we make so many mistakes, but we think that they're mistakes, but truly they're just information that we didn't know about ourselves, and it's revealing, right? So we do
Yeah.
something, we make a decision, it reveals who we are, and then we're like, oh wow, okay. So what would you say is your best failure, just because of the word, I hate that word, but
I
just the
know.
mistake that you've ever made that you've been able to learn from and teach someone else from?
There's so many, Sherri, when I look back at that time, because I, was away at boarding school, didn't grow up with a lot of guidance. My father wasn't around and things like that. But I mean, I quit college, I quit school. I was in school for interior design. And I always think back to that and I'm like, I quit school and dropped out, which, in the eyes of many people, it's like, oh, you didn't go to school. And I get asked this question now, like when I'm talking to people, I'll get asked, oh, which school did you go to? And I'm like, well, I say the school of life, because I didn't, I dropped out of school. Now I'm not advocating for not going to school. I think education is amazing. And I have done lots of further education later on in my life. It was at that point that I dropped out because I had to get a job and like survive. But I think what that taught me is that anything is possible, and not to think in a box of like, you need something to do this, because yes, you need a certification. If you want to be a doctor and you're going to go and like operate on people, obviously, yes. But the world of retail took me around the world and gave me a 6-figure job as an executive without having a piece of paper.
Right.
Actually, later on in my career, when I actually took certifications, let's say coaching certifications, because I felt like I needed it. I felt like I was missing that piece of paper for my own confidence.
Yeah.
And I did do courses and it did polish my skills, but it didn't necessarily teach me something I didn't know. So I think sometimes we get stuck on what we think it should look like. And, I always think God has a plan. So like, your purpose and your journey, as long as you're being true to yourself, will always shine through. And I try and encourage people with that, especially with like even my 24-year-old daughter, when she was the pressure of going to university, when she was leaving high school, and she didn't really know what she wanted to do. So, so it's like, I think things are possible. And I think, well, retail, I always say retail is a great career. I've achieved a lot. But that to me was at that time. And even looking back, I'm like, oh man, like dropping out of school, was that the best decision that I did? And that did feel like a bit of a failure,
At that time. And then you grew, realizing that, and I say this all the time, I'm with you. Like, I think that education is important, but I don't think education give you what work experience or life can give you. And I don't think life can give you what education can give you. Like, both are valuable at different times, right? So, but I love the fact that, you had such a positive, anything can happen. You never know what can happen. And you just continue to allow life to teach you, right? But I love the fact
to this day, still life is still teaching me.
It because it's like we always think that, okay, so we're gonna get to this point or this place, and then that's gonna be it. And it's like, no, when you get there, there'll be more for you to learn. It's an ever evolving learning journey, right? And I love but I think that that's what keeps us authentic. I think when we stray away from that, that's when things can get a little, let's put on the mask, let's pretend, let's, bring forth this particular position because I think this, or this persona because I think this person would accept me a lot more if that.
And I've been in those situations, being in corporate companies, right? Like I've worked for, big companies, Gap, Apple, Starbucks. I've worked for the major ones. And I look back and think there is times when I wasn't necessarily my authentic self.
That was my next question. You're already there.
I think that With my team, I feel like I've always been authentic with the people that are close to me or report into me as best as I could be, because I knew that kept people engaged. But there's certainly been times when I've had to manage cross-functional or up, let's say,
Yes.
and I haven't felt like I've been myself. I mean, I remember a time when I was like given a script and was like, this is what you can say and this is what you can't say. Now, if somebody did that to me now, I'd be like, there's nothing that I can't say,
right,
because I believe in everything I'm doing. And so it shouldn't feel that way. And I think that's corporate, right? Like there's certain things you can say, certain things you can't say, being in fear of being perceived as negative, when it's really not about negative. It's really about pointing out opportunities that you want to improve on or, make a difference in. But there's certainly been times like that. I think how I try and stay true to myself is just really remind myself that I'm here with a purpose to help other people. And it's not about me. It's about really how I'm in service to others.
yeah.
And so, when you're climbing and you want more salary, you want a higher role or a higher title, you got to remember that title is just the job, but it's not who you are. You got that job because of who you are and what you've done. So you shouldn't change that. Early on in my career, I remember changing who I was because I was like, oh, now I've got, the keys to the kingdom. I'm a manager. And like, I think I have to act like this. And I learned very quickly that didn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work to go
it
lead by the
limits your
title.
connection. Absolutely. It limits your connection with people. I love the fact that, you bring who you are, right? Not who they want you to be, not what the status quo says, but bring who you are. And I love the fact that you said you're serving. It seems like every conversation I have with people when it comes to being authentic and being a leader and being a game changer, they all come back to the same thing. It's about serving, and it's really about making sure that you stay very connected to that perspective, because it's that perspective that keeps you grounded, that keeps you connected to who you are as well.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you about, were there times where you didn't feel authentic? Because retail can, not just retail, any corporate job, to be honest with you, any job, I'm just going to put it out there. Corporate, we see it more often, but any job, you can try to pretend to be someone else. But as you said, if you're trying to grow and as well develop yourself, you've got to be able to bring who you are. The thing is, this is the only thing though, April, it's just that sometimes the spaces that we inhabit in our jobs don't invite who we are.
Yeah.
So my last question, before my last question, is how do we develop those spaces? I know that you do it now as you teach other leaders how to do that, but how do we develop and create spaces where people can be who they are and bring that type of creativity and innovation and problem solving and all of that good stuff to the work world and to our careers and positions?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sherri. I think it really comes down to confidence in who you are. Like my life journey, I truly believe, is the journey of self-love, like personally. And so I've done so much work on myself to understand who I am. And it's still a journey. Like I write about this in the book because from what people see on the outside, they see this very confident, outgoing person. And actually, if you know a bit more about me, when I was younger, I had a lisp. I couldn't speak. I wasn't confident. I have a twin sister who I felt was really, really like popular, right? And so I had to do a lot of work on myself. So I had to really do that self-deep work, which makes me more confident and show up more confident and valuing who I am and what I bring. And so I think the work that has to be done with leaders, and I always do this with people I'm working with, and it naturally happens in retail when you're working with a team or you're working with managers, is you help them discover what their talents are, what their skills are. And their purpose could be just to uplift a team of people every day. And you know what? It's pretty incredible, because you might be working with people that are going through a lot of stuff at home, and coming to work is their outlet. So you don't discount that as a purpose. Your purpose doesn't have to be to create Apple or this $1 billion company. Your purpose could just be to speak to somebody every day and just enlighten them or lift them. And so I think really valuing what your purpose is and discovering that. I've done so much work on that. I can't even tell you. Like 10 years ago, if somebody asked me what I was passionate about, what my purpose was, I knew I was always helping people, and I knew that I loved building teams and creating environments where people felt safe. But now I find it's like more about confidence building, and I know what my purpose is, but that's because I've done the work.
Right.
Like I've done so much work. So I think we have to create space where people can be themselves and help them find what they're good at. I've had people that have messaged me that I worked with in retail 20 years ago. It was their first part-time job, and they'll say things like, you know, April, you really helped me discover this about myself, and since then, this is what I'm doing. But I always remember that experience. That confidence that I gave them has carried them in their life, like in their family, you know, in their career choice. And so I think building confidence, and that's why I love working with One Voice, One Team with this program, because that's what they're doing. And that's what the RetailU Ace Your First Job in Retail is all about, that partnership.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I know that first of I love that what you just said you got to do the work. Basically, it's what it is. You've got to do the work within yourself. You've got to become more self-aware and be kind to yourself. Like actually really get to know who you are, because confidence doesn't just come like that. It comes after years of work or time that you spent with yourself. So becoming more self-aware, I agree 100%. One Voice, One Team is a great organization. We love what we're doing. For those that don't know, we have a program called Get Your Life, and we've partnered that program. That's an employability readiness program or job readiness program. We partnered with RetailU and her specific course called How to Ace Your First Retail Job. And so a lot of times young people, their first job is in retail. And a lot of times they just don't know how to ace it, how to get it. So we teach them the career development stuff. RetailU teaches them how to ace that job. And we have had a cohort of young people that have gone through, and actually last week, 2 of them have been offered employment at Ardennes, and we are so excited. They are excited. And not only did it just remove an employment barrier, because these are marginalized youth that would have normally probably had a harder time. And that's what they were explaining to us. They were having such a hard time just finding a job in the midst of us coming out of a pandemic, in the midst of the young people struggling so much with their mental health. This is such an amazing opportunity for them to be able to feel confident, build that confidence with us, with the Get Your Life program, as well as the RetailU program, and then get an internship with Ardennes and because we're coming out to New York City, and whoever else wants to open their doors and say, hey, I'll give a young person internship with the possibility of gaining employment. I'll give them that opportunity, because that's all they need sometimes, is just that opportunity. So we're excited to work with you as well. Last question, the positive effect.
Yes.
It sounded like you were very positive. I have one right now. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's an amazing book. I definitely recommend, if you have not gotten the book, you definitely want to get a lot more insight on April Sabral and her journey. It's really an amazing book. But the positive effect, what really would you say is that positive effect that we as authentic leaders have to bring with us each and every time we step into a room and we can impact a customer, a client, internal or external, part of our team, our family members? What is that positive effect?
I think it comes back to communication. You know, I watch people all day, and specifically now because I'm working back in with some teams of retailers, and I sat down with 2 people the other day that were having a conflict with each other, right? 2 leaders. And literally, I just solved the problem with them and walked away and left them with a positive feeling of being together and working together and building their relationship. And I think it comes down to communication. It's like so many people all day, every day are speaking at each other and not with each other. And so to really have a positive effect on people, you need to really listen to them and help people feel heard. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody's more more interested in themselves than anybody else. And
Mm.
so knowing that when you can actually get people to share whatever it is and get them to really feel heard and seen, they're going to be more apt to listen to you, to what your suggestions are, and you'll have a positive effect because they feel listened to. Everybody wants to be heard. Whenever you, it's funny because I'll go into rooms with leaders and stuff, and I won't say a lot, and then I'll ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions and listen a lot,
Mhm.
and don't really always share a lot about me. And at the end of the conversation, they'll all be like, "Oh my God, April was amazing! Like she's so positive." And I'm like, I really didn't say anything about myself. I just asked questions and got them to talk about themselves, and that's
Right.
why they
Right.
feel so good because
Yeah. Yeah.
I gave them a space to be heard and to be listened to. So I think as leaders, we need to take a real responsibility with that and really think about when we walk into a room or we're engaging with a client or anybody, you can have an impact in a neutral way. I think you can be neutral, right? You can say something that doesn't really mean a lot. You can be negative or you can be positive. And
Yeah.
positivity comes from being a good listener. I can't say that
Yeah.
enough, you know?
Yeah. And I think I agree with you 100%. Active listening is something that it's seriously a skill for sure. And
Mhm.
I think that what I would add to that, I love that perspective. What I would add to that is that you've got to want to. You've got to want to. If you don't want to listen and all you want to do is just, I want you to hear what I have to say, and then there's not going to be a connection. There's not going to be an opportunity for there to be any type of positivity exchanged, right? Or
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. What's next? What's next? What are your dreams, aspirations, goals? What's next for you?
Oh my Lord. I don't know. I've been thinking about that because I'm kind of resetting my goals for 2022. So I do want to do a TED talk. So I'm saying that out loud now because then I'm going to have to
You
hold
better say it out loud.
it.
Come on, put it out in the universe,
So
as they
TED
say.
Talk 2022. The book's getting republished through a publishing house, Balboa Press, in December. So that'll be coming out, hopefully, into more bookstores because it was self-published. So I want that book to get read by a lot more people because I think the people that have read it, what they email me and tell me, I'm just like, oh my God, it's so powerful. So,
I'm with
you know,
you.
I don't
Yes.
know, building that brand more, helping more youth. Like I want to get way more retailers to sponsor your program and get youth
Yeah.
employed, especially now because I'm telling you right now, it's really difficult to find staff. Stores are closed because there's no staff. And I'll just continue to be an advocate for retail being a great place to work.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I'll write another book about the other side of my life, not retail. I don't know. I'm open
We'll
to
see.
whatever
We'll see.
opportunities come.
Stay tuned, everybody. Actually, we're gonna take a really quick break, and then we'll come back with something that you guys weren't expecting. Just so hold on right there. Hold on right there. We're gonna take a break. 1 second.
Tap into a sisterhood of women founders and entrepreneurs with the PGW sorority. Go to prettygirlswork.com and click on Pledge PGW. Fill out your pledge form and pay your monthly or annual dues. Request access to our members-only Facebook group. Then join houses that are specific to your industry or the skills that you want to develop in your business. You can take advantage of free tools and resources and gain access to courses, workshops, masterminds, small group coaching, and private mentorship exclusive to members. Pledge PGW and start scaling your business today.
We're back. We're back with Miss April Sabral. She just dropped gems on us, guys. I don't know if you were here. I hope you were listening. But I think that, the positive effect, it really is a very revealing book. It really does challenge you to see yourself and to see how you are connecting or not to someone, to people, whether it be professional, with your personal life. I definitely recommend for you guys to get the book. I also recommend for people to reach out to RetailU, reach out to myself at onevoiceoneteam.org. Get in there and sponsor the Get Your Life program. It's Get Your Life. Okay, that's what it is. And we want more retailers. We want more people out there, more C-suite levels. Listen, take away the barriers, remove the barriers for these marginalized youth. They need it now more than ever. So if you're interested, please, please, please reach out to RetailU, reach out to myself, Sherri at onevoiceoneteam.org. We would be happy to have that conversation with you. And here's the last thing. When it comes to consider this, First and foremostly, we want you to, if you're listening to this, like, subscribe, send this to someone, share it. We want it, whether it be on Spotify, whether YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching this, share, share, share. Okay, and make sure that you're putting on those notifications so that you can hear when the next podcast conversation comes out. The last thing we always love to do is we like to end the show with a compelling thought. Just one thought that you want the listeners to not ever forget. So usually we say it like in one sentence, and usually it starts like, if you remember nothing else I've said, remember this. What would be that statement for you?
Well, it's the last page of my book, and it's this: be the type of energy that no matter where you go, you always add value to the spaces and lives around you.
Come on, drop the mic. Be the energy. Don't talk about it, be about it. April, thank you so much. We appreciate you so, so much. I thank you so much. You already know I'll call you later.
Thank
We'll
you,
talk
Sherri.
later on. But I'm so blessed to have had you here. It's been an honor. Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you
thank
so
you.
much. Awesome. For those of you guys who have been following us this season, you know what it's about. It's about considering things from a different lens. It's about seeing beyond just what is seen in our eye. We don't just see CEOs just pop up like that. It was years and years and years in the making. You heard her. She went from getting kicked out, going from boarding school to being on her own at a young age, starting, what am I going to do with my life? Okay, I'm going to start in retail and see what happens. And it became an amazing thing where now she's turning around and empowering others. I'm hoping that this conversation empowered you, that it enlightened you, that it lifted you up, that it inspired you in some way to consider things differently outside the box. Next time, I'm hoping to hear back from you. If this moved you, share it with somebody. If this touched you, comment below, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Consider this.